A dark abyss descends upon Mornstead. The demon god Adir's malignance spreads inexorably across the lands of mortals. His undying legions deliver unto thousands agonizing death as they march unstoppable. Yet in these dire hours, a brilliant light casts away the shadows. Against impossible odds, there is one who stands defiant, a paragon of righteousness and bulwark of hope against the coming darkness. Pieta, she of blessed renewal, sworn to defend Aureus' divine radiance, enacts her duty with angelic conviction. Her presence exudes holy poise, her name evokes purity, but against such terrible threats even the zealous waver, even angels fall. Pieta struggles against Adir and his demonic Rhogar, while an invisible, sinister force born from another realm eats at her soul and stains her pure heart. Who exactly is this warrior of light? To what is Pieta obliged, and what comes of her fate? Hers is a tale of internal turmoil, of ignorance and deception, of deep illuminating morality, marred by blackness that stains the soul. To understand the story of Pieta, we must journey into the past, before the Rhogar blight, before Adir's corruption, before Mornstead faced cataclysm. Let's dive in. In the bustling streets of Calrath, a young girl wallows on the cobblestone, alone and afraid. She knows not what happened to her mother and has no memory of a father. The child wanders listlessly before being taken into the shelter of a local orphanage, bursting with other wayward souls. Under roof and with hot food, the girl, named Eliane, nonetheless screams through the night, tormented by dreams of a dark reality. A land of the dead where nightmarish creatures feast on the vigor of the living. Unbeknownst to the girl and those in whom she confides, such dreams are visions of the umbral realm that, according to the odd stone item description, has always been potent in Mornstead, the kingdom unwittingly built upon a place where the veil between realms can be particularly thin. Incursions of umbral monstrosities are common in Calrath, spawn grim stories and cautionary tales. This smooth stone, worn down by years of use, is given to Eliane by a kind caretaker within the orphanage named Iris, who settles the child's nerves and helps her cope with the immense trauma of her past. Fear of isolation and a creeping dread that something sinister lurks nearby perturb the child, who is in constant need of distracting affection. A strong memory that exists within this stigma.
Eliane, you can't just run off like this. You had everyone at the orphanage worried sick. I know it's not easy, but it can be a frightening place at times, so I want to give you something very special I've had since I was a little girl. When I used to get scared, I'd hold it very, very tightly, and that's when it would reveal its magic to me. And I'd know there was no need to be afraid. So the next time you get scared, I want you to be a brave girl and do the same thing. Understand? There's nothing to be afraid of, Eliane. I promise.
When the odd stone is happened upon by the Deathless One and handed to Pieta, it triggers old and long repressed memory. She divulges such recollection herself in dialogue.
That stone, it looks different somehow. But I know it. When I was a girl at the orphanage, there was a very kind woman, Iris. She gave it to me. This was before the hallowed sentinels found me. I felt so afraid and alone, but Iris helped me overcome my fears. I lost the stone long ago, but now here it is again, all these years later. I wish I could say the same of the orphanage. And Iris?
Eliane spends time with other lost children in the orphanage. As they play, minor nicks and bruises are suffered. To Eliane's surprise, she discovers that droplets of her blood make others feel better, heal the scratches borne by other children. A latent, innate ability manifests within. Those around her are in disbelief, unsure whether the child is a blessing from their god or a curse spawned of reprehensible sorcery. A patrol of hallowed sentinels, blessed warriors of Aureus' divine radiance, arrives at the shelter looking to recruit young, able bodies to replenish the ranks of their holy order. Word of Eliane's ability draws the patrol's scrutiny, who bring the child before their judge cleric. After a dazzling display of her talent, Eliane is deemed a boon sent to them by Aureus himself, yet the hallowed sentinels can only guess at the power surging within her. They do not realize entirely what they happened upon, but hear of her inborn fears, of her visions of the nightmare worlds beyond. To separate the girl from a haunting past, the sentinels indoctrinate her in their ways. Eliane's name and her past are discarded. The girl is remolded into something, into someone, endowed with significance. Pieta, she of blessed renewal, a benevolent healer who cures the ailments of others with her mystical blood. As Pieta matures, her skills improve markedly. The hallowed sentinels, aware of her dubious origins, fabricate a lie that claims she was born directly from their god, who impregnated her mother. This we hear from the remembrance of Pieta, she of blessed renewal. As the young Pieta blossomed even more brilliantly than the hallowed sentinels expected, they shared with her the tale of her miraculous origin, being born of a human mother, impregnated with holy light bestowed by Aureus himself, hence her extraordinary nature. This false narrative is smoke to obscure the girl's connection to the heretical realm of Umbral, a connection that grows more apparent the further into her past they plumb, but no certainties are found. Pieta's resolve and conviction bring her accolades within the hallowed sentinels, and tales of her healing blood are whispered throughout Mornstead. After a tumultuous childhood, Pieta finally achieves peace through purpose. She works with industry across the kingdom, aiding those who have little and inspiring hope in the downtrodden, for she remembers all too well her own difficult childhood within Kalrath. But something terrible soon stirs on the horizon. Pieta's purpose is tested to the extreme when the demon god, so long imprisoned, breaks from his shackles and uses his dark influence to unleash corruption, blight, and demonic Rhogar legions upon the land. Infirmaries and field hospitals echo with the death rattles of soldiers as clerics and healers rush to offer ministrations. War consumes Mornstead as hallowed sentinels lead regulars in the fight against the demonic. Pieta emerges as a folk hero amongst rank and file, the divine face of munificence whose healing blood cleanses all, reinvigorates the wounded. The hallowed sentinels, in their war against the Rhogar, are quick to weaponize Pieta's ability. They develop the sanguinarics, vials of her holy blood encased in an Orian crucifix to tend swiftly to soldiers injured on the battlefield. Pieta's strong coupling to the sanguinarics is manifest in her ability to bless the Deathless One's own vial, increasing its efficacy in charges by imbuing saintly quintessence. With the sanguinarics dispersed amongst hallowed sentinels, Rhogar advances grind to a sluggish pace, but continue to pressure Mornstead. After much death and cataclysm, Pieta's honor forces her to leave the crimson-stained halls of the hospitals and face Rhogar in battle. Called to action and equipped with a blade of pure radiant light, Pieta brings low Adir's twisted armies. So critical is her empowered blood to the war effort that the woman's armor and sword hilts are adorned with sharp barbs. She suffers through pain to release the flow of her crimson draft and sustain those around her. Pieta's transformation from pacifist healer to saintly blade master comes to us in the description of the Blessed Reflection spell that calls forth radiant images of Pieta to inflict massive damage. It reads, Pieta's remarkable skills as a warrior were always equaled by her skills as a healer, but as the hallowed sentinels' war against the Rhogar became increasingly desperate and savage, she found the former set of skills in far more frequent use than the latter. Desperation indeed befalls the hallowed sentinels, as more towns and villages are consumed by Adir's fire. Pieta is increasingly relied upon, and either from her latent power or from the saintly worship now cast upon her by faithful soldiers, she is deified as angelic wings spread triumphantly from her back. So inspiring is her presence that mere mention or sight of the blessed angel is enough to invigorate morale and seize victory. Such is heard in the description of Pieta's leggings. The sight of Pieta's wings has given heart to many a hallowed sentinel on the battlefield, heightening their fervor amongst slaughterous maelstroms of blood and light. Ennobled by their saint, Pieta leads sentinels through valiant conflict. Their cause, however, soon finds itself doomed not from Rhogar threat, but from internal betrayal. Adir's perversion stains hearts and twists minds. The god whispers wretched promises, infernal words that enthrall those who hear, to break faith and join his ghastly retinue. This fractures Aureus' divine legions as the hallowed sentinels are struck from within by hundreds of maddened warriors who cast off their vows. Brother and sister strike at one another. Discord ripples through Mornstead and the ranks of hallowed sentinels as trust dissipates, replaced instead with crazed blindness. Bloody carnage tears the armies of mortals as more lords pledge fealty to Adir. Exhausted by countless battles, burdened by the sundered hope of millions, Pieta's conviction cracks and allows the demon god purchase in her mind. Like so many others before her, madness overcomes the blessed warrior in the cathedral beyond Skyrest Bridge. Touched by hysteria and fallen from grace, Pieta nonetheless carries out her duty, driven perhaps by muscle and rote memory alone. She stands lonely vigil above the desecrated beacons of the sentinels, a solemn figure that laments the fall of so many brothers and sisters. Pieta continues her noble work, as can be seen by the activation of this stigma.
Brothers and sisters, you honor us and all who came before you with your sacrifices. While I wish they were unnecessary, my wishes will not ease your suffering, but I pray my sorcery does. And yet you now appear before me, a stranger, bearing what was not yours to receive. A betrayal made flesh, and one I cannot brook.
By the time the Deathless One approaches Skyrest Bridge, Pieta is no longer herself. An unsound mind and a bloodied, weakened body nonetheless belie significant power that continues to course underneath. Pieta sees in the Deathless One blasphemy made flesh, a terrible betrayal of light caused by the infernal darkness of the Umbral Lantern. In crazed fury, Pieta engages the Deathless One. Nothing will stop her but a terminal, mortal battle. The warrior displays both her skill as a blade master and her devotion to holy magic, but she is ultimately overcome, defeated by the unnamed hero. Life and life force stain the stone beneath her as Pieta lies dead, but an angel of such renown is not so easily defeated. Pieta's invigorating blood proves powerful enough even to cast off the cold pall of death. The blessed saint is resurrected, imbued with the warm glow of life once more.
By Aureus' divine will, I live again. It's a miracle. And to think I raised my sword to you, when all along you were a divine instrument sent by him to deliver my death and rebirth and bring clarity. Forgive me, Lampbearer. I'm Pieta of the Hallowed Sentinels. And as Aureus sustains me, so too will I sustain you. Whether by making manifest your potential or through my healing blood, contained within the sanguinarics you carry. Should you find any saintly quintessences, bring them to me, and they can bolster the power of my blood further still. The beacons must be cleansed, the hallowed sentinels restored, and Adir's malignancy eradicated. Through whatever is to come, fellow chosen of Aureus, we stand together in service of him.
Martyrdom and glorious rebirth at the hands of the Deathless One bring lucidity back to Pieta. Once slain, her blood magic endows the warrior with new life, a resurrection that frees her from Adir's profanity. With clarity restored, Pieta assists the Deathless One from Skyrest Bridge in their mission to restore radiance to the beacons of the Sentinels and cleanse the world of the demon god's influence. There are some, however, who still treat Pieta with caution. the Dark Crusader exactor Dunmire worries for the woman's frail sanity, divulging as much.
This land is overflowing with sin, so I expect this undertaking to offer you little difficulty. Also, say nothing of this to Pieta or the Fidelis captain. They are already conflicted. Troubling them further only endangers them and our mission.
He sees within her one who nearly succumbed to Adir's influence, a blasphemy of the highest order. Enriched once more by resolute purpose, a sense of peace returns to angelic Pieta, but the Blessed One's tale doesn't end here. A sinister truth, hinted at but not stated outright, makes itself more apparent. Knowledge illuminates the dark recesses of Pieta's origins and casts into light her infernal existence. The child Eliane was not born of Aureus' divine will, was not born from parents of flesh, but is rather an amalgamation of umbral and axiom, a creature formed by the melding of two realities. Her childhood nightmares lend credence to this, as does the Hallowed Sentinel's desire to obscure her past. More damning still is the revelation that the depraved creature Malhu, worshipper of Umbral's dark deity, carried out several experimentations to fuse the essence of an axiom being with an umbral parasite. The product of these twisted rituals was the child, Eliane. The description of the umbral parasite that infects her reads, Malhu suffered many failures before a mother and baby finally survived his process, and the latter, a girl, was born with an umbral parasite bonded to her very essence. The mother being of no further use, Malhu disposed of her before going on to watch over the child with the greatest of care and interest. Her blood's healing properties stem not from the illustrious Aureus, but an infernal parasite of umbral which wraps itself around her strong life force. Umbral parasites pierce the veil separating two realms, drawn to Axiom's vigor. Though they slowly consume their host, parasites first empower them, bestowing great boons and a lust for killing that further feeds the parasite's insatiable appetite. Unknown to her, Pieta's blood is stained by umbral abhorrence. So complete was Malhu's deception that not even the Hallowed Sentinels realized from whence her power blossomed. The fallen sword of Eliane the Starved tells us that the Hallowed Sentinels never suspected the true nature of the incredible power they sensed inside the orphan, Eliane, for it would have meant her death. Instead, the child born of flesh and umbral was indoctrinated with a lie and molded in the light of the cleric. Her true, grotesque form is hidden beneath an outward facade of reverent nobility. Once soul-flayed, the light of the umbral lamp exposes the truth.
Lamp bearer.
Eliane continues to exist within Pieta, a starved, depraved creature of umbral, the antithesis to all Pieta personified. Pieta's life was a lie, a struggle against invisible threats and the dark hunger lurking deep within. The strength of Pieta's conviction carried her far, preventing her from succumbing to the parasite's base desire. She drowned herself in a cause, lost herself in noble action to deny the monster within, but despair comes for all. Sentiment echoed in the umbral substance, the remembrance of Eliane the Starved. The girl the Hallowed Sentinels renamed Pieta never realized that by serving a cause she deemed greater than herself and giving life, she was acting in defiance of her own parasitic nature. But sooner or later, somehow, hunger will out. Pieta, she of blessed renewal, was marked by fate for significance. Born from dark sorcery that instilled within her great profanity, Pieta fought valiantly against her true form. Her resolution, duty, and honor proved a rallying cry for the Hallowed Sentinels in their fight against the Rhogar. Innate powers and ebullient faith vaulted Pieta to angelic heights, but this radiant beacon of light is stained by the black abyss. A hunger, long ignored, threatens to emerge, to bring low an angel and bear a twisted echo, a bane to the living. Such is the tragedy of the orphan Eliane. Thanks so much for watching and listening to this video on Pieta, she of Blessed Renewal, in Lords of the Fallen. Now I want to hear from you. Let me know your thoughts on Pieta, her dark origins, as well as suggestions for future videos in the comments below. And if you're a fan of lore and storytelling, be sure to subscribe to the channel, check out the podcast where content is uploaded frequently. I want to thank my amazing supporters over on Patreon who make all of this possible, and I couldn't do it without their fantastic support. If you'd like to become a lore luminary for access to me, a great community, written scripts, and early video drops, head to patreon.com/thelorebrarians to learn more. Until next time, go forth and explore the lore.